Hello, welcome, and good evening, good morning, whenever you are listening to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar, with your hosts, myself, Rory Petre, and of course, Mark Broadhurst. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are. Sit back and enjoy the show of what has been another fantastic weekend of Bundesliga action. Do yourselves and us a favour by clicking the big red button, the subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube, and to click on the little bell icon in the corner, which also notifies you of shows when they are released, so you don't miss a thing. As per, if you're listening on a audio platform, please do click subscribe, leave us a rating, leave us a review, just so we know how we are getting on. As is tradition, it's time to go over to Mark for Mark's mystery anagram to kick us off before we get into the real juicy bits from this weekend. It has been another enticing and interesting Bundesliga weekend's worth of action. So, Mark, what have you got for us on the anagram front this weekend?
Absolutely. So let's just remind you guys of Mark's mystery anagram from 2 weeks ago. It was now, because obviously we had the international break last weekend. So if for you guys who don't remember, then let's have a look. It was actually, as you can see on the bottom, it was race rooms last time. RACEROOMS. And actually, unfortunately, we didn't have anybody that got the correct answer commenting on YouTube this week. Yeah, so that's 2 weeks in a row. So come on, guys, we really want you to get it right for the next week. But actually, obviously, I have to reveal the official answer from 2 weeks ago, which was Borussia Mönchengladbach's excellent up-and-coming coach, Marco Rose. So, yeah, so it wasn't such a difficult one this time. So I thought some of you guys would have got it. So come on, for next time, let's get it correct. So let's find out what we've got for you this week. So just again, to remind you of the rules, it has to be something related to the Bundesliga, either a player, a coach/manager, or a team from the Bundesliga. It has to be one of those things. Let's have a look at Mark's mystery anagram for this week, which is Hoffenheim. Wow. It actually sounds like a Scottish word a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah. So for you Scottish guys watching out there, you should be able to get this one. Yeah. So Hoffenheim. For the guys that are listening on our podcast and on our different platforms on Spotify, on Anchor, etc., it's FIFE space HEM space HON. Hoffenheim. So that's your Mark's mystery anagram for this week, which is week 9 of the week 8 of the Bundesliga.
Indeed.
So let's end our Mark's mystery anagram section now. Let's move on to recap the results from yet another fantastic weekend of Bundesliga action. So there were actually no games on Friday evening this week. Usually we always say your 1-1 draws on the Friday evening, but today we just saved the 1-1 draws for the Saturday afternoons, I think. Yeah. So of course we had Arminia Bielefeld, struggling Bielefeld, losing 2-1 at home to on-form Bayer Leverkusen on Saturday afternoon. Bayern held to a shock 1-1 draw by draw specialist Werder Bremen. Another 1-1 draw with Borussia Mönchengladbach drawing against tough-to-beat Augsburg. Then we had another draw, but it was a brilliant draw, 3-3 between Hoffenheim and high-scoring Stuttgart. Then we had a 2-0 away win for Wolfsburg at badly struggling Schalke, which we'll decipher their problems a bit later on in the show. We had another pretty entertaining 1-1 draw between Frankfurt and Leipzig, who still can't get those wins again in those big away games, can they? And then a kind of a mini classic to finish off the Saturday afternoon, a brilliant 5-2 win for Borussia Dortmund in the Olympiastadion, where Hertha just never win, do they? But yeah, great game, that one. Moving on to the Sunday afternoon games, we had a 3-1 away win for Mainz in Freiburg, their first win of the season. Well done, Mainz. And then we had another win for Union Berlin, an excellent 2-1 win, this time at winless Cologne. So that rounds up your scores for this week. Another entertaining week of Bundesliga action. So let's move on to our OTB's featured 4 now. So obviously we like to choose our 4, the best games of the week. And this week, I think there's only one place to start, really, isn't there? And that is in the north of Germany, in the Olympiastadion, where Hertha were once again beaten by an on-fire Dortmund side, really, this week, wasn't it, Rory?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, fantastic performance by Dortmund. Well, say a fantastic performance, a fantastic second half performance specifically, because of course all 5 of their goals came in the second half. Hertha had got themselves ahead after a fantastic strike from Kahuna. So that gave Hertha, the home side, a bit of hope against obviously a non-form side in the shape of Dortmund. But the inevitable man, the golden boy himself, Erling Haaland, obviously pokes home his first for the equaliser from an Emre Can cross. And then the rest is history. He got his second ball after being played through by Brandt. His third is hat-trick, rounding the keeper to slot home. And of course, his 4th goal came a little bit later on after a Jude Bellingham assist as well. So, yeah, Borussia Dortmund go marching on. They'll be very pleased with this, specifically the second half performance. Maybe slight slow coming out of the blocks this weekend, but yeah, I mean, with the golden boy himself up front, they're always going to be in the contest. I think with such a prolific goal scorer, they're going to have a fantastic chance of kind of contesting the Bundesliga championship and everything else that they're going for. He is a complete striker, and he's obviously still so young, so much to learn. It's frightening how good he could become. So there's so many positives to take from that regard for Dortmund, so they can go marching on, and results, as we've already alluded to, have gone their way. So they're right in the mix now. We were saying the last time we did the show after Der Klassiker, we don't think the Bundesliga title is dead and gone, and we were right, because it's well up for grabs, and it always has been for considering it's still very early doors anyway. So yeah, very exciting team, Dortmund, and of course we saw the young man himself, kind of the star boy other than Haaland, getting himself on late on in the shame of Moukoko. We'll allude to him a little bit more later on. But yeah, Dortmund look like they're going from strength to strength at the moment. And with the return of form potentially of Sancho and other players like that, they could well be onto a cracking season, I reckon.
Yeah, I think another name that a lot of people kind of let get through the grasp really in the Dortmund team is Rafael Guerreiro. Because I mean, he's quite long standing now, really. I think he's been there like 4 or 5 years at the club, and yet nobody really seems to mention him. But he's a constant kind of danger in that wing back position, isn't he? Like, I think he's not actually originally a wing back. He's kind of like a converted wing back, really. Wasn't brought in originally as a wing back. But I mean, obviously you got to go a bit of a scrappy 4th goal, really. But I mean, you have to be in the positions to get those kind of goals. But also obviously a good assist as well, and he just kind of constantly provides problems down. I mean, obviously we've talked before about how important wing backs are for Dortmund, and like how they are such an attacking side. But I mean, I think I think he deserves a kind of shout out, really, Guerreiro, because you don't really hear many people talking about him as like a top player. But like, I think for me, he is probably one of the top right backs in football at the moment, to be honest with you. So another great performance from him. Yeah, and I think obviously, you did allude to Moukoko. I mean, 16 years old. Yeah, I mean, obviously he only got, I think, 4 or 5 minutes coming on for Haaland. I think some people expected that he would get a little bit more game time this weekend. But I mean, overall, a great for him to get the debut, isn't it? Yeah. Did you expect big things from him, Rory?
Well, certainly there's been enough hype around the young man. He's already had an awful lot to deal with at such a young age as well. I think in that previously he's suffered from racial incidents as well at some underage games in the age kind of structures of the Dortmund club that is run. So that's something that he's already had to deal with. So for such a young man. You can barely say that. He's a teenager, basically. He's already had to deal with a lot. So let's hope that he can come into the squad and really mature and get into his football. Shouldn't, of course, expect too much from him straight away. Obviously, his goal-scoring record is absolutely insane at all the different age groups that Dortmund have. So he clearly knows where the back of the net is. For such a young player and such a small player, obviously, he's probably just going to have to avoid some of those bigger contests. Like, he's just got to pick and choose his fights, really. Like, he'll know going up against a 6'4", 5" centre-back isn't going to be his game. He's going to get his goals via his movement, being smart, and obviously using his pace and things like that. So certainly looks like one to watch for the future. Of course, we will keep our eyes on him as well and how he progresses. But yeah, an exciting player, another exciting young player in the Bundesliga to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also a case of Lucien Favre kind of managing him well enough as well, because as you say, he is only 16. You can't expect him to go in there and start banging in goals the way that Erling Haaland has. You've got to be realistic. I think obviously his records at kind of youth levels are like they beat anybody. I think they're like all of the Bundesliga kind of pundits and things, they all say like this guy has better records than anybody, like even some of the greats that have come through the Bundesliga system, And so I think, yeah, obviously there are going to be really, really big hopes for him, but you've got to be a bit realistic, at least for the first 2 years, haven't you? Maybe even 2 to 4 years, really. You can't expect like him to start banging goals in like from day one, can you? So I think it's a case of like managing him. Obviously, he can't play that much because he probably doesn't have the fitness to kind of deal with Bundesliga football for 90 minutes every week as well. So at first, it might just be a case of like cameo appearances of the last half an hour of games and things like that. And then maybe towards the end of the season, we might start to see him start if he proves himself good enough. But I guess Dortmund aren't really in need of any reinforcements, really. It's just another option for them, isn't it? Because they've got so much quality up top, but they don't really need a replacement for anybody. So, yeah. And what about Hertha? Obviously, it's another home defeat for them. I think they've lost every home game of the season so far. And this is a problem that leads on to last season as well, where they didn't win many home games either. I mean, obviously, I don't think it was a terrible performance from them. They scored a good goal to go 1-0 up through the kind of danger man, Matheus Cunha, who looks to be a real good player. But, Rory, do you think you can expect a little bit more? Because there is a lot of quality in that side, really.
Yeah, there is. Certainly, as we've always said on the show, Hertha just don't seem to win games at home. And the problem is with that, it's fine if you can survive in the Bundesliga on your away form, but there are always going to be patches when you don't travel away so well. And then that's obviously when the big problem comes into the fact of, are you going to get dragged down into that bottom 4 or 5, like we've already kind of mentioned, that those teams are down there. They don't want to be sucked into that. They do have a very talented squad, and there's certainly a lot more to come from them, I do hope. But yeah, it's just one of those. It's just one of those days where they're on the wrong end of a Haaland masterclass, and at home doesn't seem to work for them. Those two things combined led to a bad day in the end at the office. But they'll go again, and I'm sure they'll recover.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be in any danger of like relegation or anything, because they do win games away from home. They can win quite impressively away from home. But yeah, I mean, this home form is like, it's beyond just a bit of a bad patch. They need to sort it out with or without fans. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our second game, which was a really, really entertaining game. I think we both predicted this was going to be high scoring, but maybe we didn't expect a 6-goal draw. But yeah, I mean, Hoffenheim 3, Stuttgart 3. I mean, it was very much a topsy-turvy game as well. Obviously, Hoffenheim getting in front very early on before Stuttgart got that quick fire double, like a couple of really nice goals as well there from Stuttgart. I think the second one, it hit the post twice, and then he still managed to poke it in at the third attempt. So it looked like it was going to be kind of bad luck, but eventually he did get it in. Yeah, I think the first goal was a really good goal from the on-form striker Gonzalez as well, who's looking to be another really good player for. I mean, we've mentioned a lot that we really, really like the attack for Stuttgart. Like, they create bags of chances, don't they? And they're entertaining to watch too. But then obviously you're just hoping that you get into the break at 2-1 up Stuttgart. But then this is the problem with Stuttgart, isn't it? They have like a 20 minute to 30-minute lapse, and they find themselves behind after probably being comfortably the better side really for most of the game. And then obviously rescuing the point at the end here. And Rory, do you think, how can Stuttgart start turning these entertaining draws into wins?
Well, it's a good question, because there's a lot of things that they've got going for them, which there's obviously to be positive about. They score goals, they're so exciting to watch. But I think the problem may well lie, unfortunately, in partially the way that they play. They play a really high tempo, high pressing game, which more often than not catches teams out in the early part of the game. It's happened to lots and lots of teams already this season. They're not ready for it, and it's brilliant to watch. It's a really good way to play. But as you've alluded to, Mark, it does sometimes then lead to these little kind of spells, these lapses in concentration, say in and around the second half, around the hour mark, with about half an hour, 20 minutes to play, and they just seem to have their energy sapped. Whether that's just a fitness thing, whether it's trying to just manage the game a bit better, or even just to try and get some subs on slightly earlier. In fact, maybe try and keep things fresh. Obviously, that's going to be an issue throughout the season, keeping players fresh and such. So, there's probably a couple of ways they can maybe alter the way that they play slightly to avoid these goals going in and these lapses in concentration happening. Of course, as a newly promoted team, they'll be really pleased with the start that they've made. And in fact, all these games where they're going away to Hoffenheim and other teams like that, where on paper you'd expect Stuttgart to be the underdog, but the way they're playing this season, it means that their ambitions are being slightly altered. Because if you're a fan of Stuttgart and you're watching this show, you're probably thinking to yourself at the start of the season, like 16th place, 15th place and above, happy as. Avoid relegation, stay in the Bundesliga and build, because it's such a young talented squad. However, the way that they've started is really, really impressive. So that's where the frustration will come, in the fact that they've lost points in all these kind of mass draws. Of course, this weekend is kind of the shoe on the other foot, because they're the team who have then snatched the point late on because of Kemp's late goal to equalise for his side. So, hopefully they manage to get themselves a few more wins and convert these draws, which would see them push well up into the race for the top six. They're well up there, that's for sure. A couple of these draws turned into wins, they would be in there. So, real positive from a Stuttgart point of view, I think.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with the fact that, if you are a Stuttgart fan, you're going to be really happy overall, because it's really entertaining to watch your team at the moment. Obviously the last time they were in the Bundesliga, it was a bit of a disaster for them, really. They finished third from bottom before losing, pretty pathetically, really, losing the relegation playoff to Union Berlin when they were pretty big favourites to win that, really. Yeah. So obviously it was, and I think they had more big names in the side at that time as well. Like, they had the likes of Mario Gomez, and I think nobody could have predicted that they'd have gone down that year. But this year it has been really, really good football. I would say they're probably in my top 4 teams to watch this season. I would say out of the 18 in the Bundesliga, I would just I'm starting to develop a bit of a soft spot for them, to be honest with you. I just want to see them start picking up wins, because, for me, there's a few players in that squad who've been up there with, the best in the Bundesliga this year. I've mentioned Castro, also Endo, the Japanese midfielder, as well as and obviously Nicolas Gonzalez is providing the goals, and he's another very nice, tricky forward as well. Yeah. And I think, obviously, it's just maybe a bit of a. I think a few of these players are new to the Bundesliga as well, and I think it's just about getting kind of that game management to pick up these big wins. It's but I think it is just a matter of time before they start turning draws into wins at the moment. Yeah. As for Hoffenheim, I mean, I would say really they probably should have, despite the fact they were leading late on, I would still say they were second best for most of the game, to be honest. Most of the chances fell in the way of Stuttgart. I think obviously they are a team that have got big ambitions. I mean, they're going well in Europe and everything. They expect to be a top 6 side, really, Hoffenheim, top 6, 7. I think obviously it's not been a great start to the season, Rory, has it? Do you think the manager could be coming under a bit of pressure now, maybe? Because obviously it's 12 plays with 8 points from 8 games. It's not great, is it, really?
Yeah, things have started to take a bit of a downturn, obviously, especially in the Bundesliga, because they are going great guns in the Europa. Whether the Europa is a poison chalice is another question. Obviously, I would have thought that they had enough squad depth to cope certainly with Europa League and be at least challenging for the top 6. But at the moment, they're not doing that. That the three, obviously the late equalisers, a sucker punch for them, because then they can, if they can get that win, they can get themselves back further up the league and just get a bit more momentum. It would give them a positive slant to go into Europe for. If they win that game, match week 4, potentially get themselves qualified for the knockouts, and then they can go on to back into the Bundesliga with real momentum. So unfortunately, that hasn't happened for them. The positives, of course, from the game will be seeing Kramaric back. His goals just keep on coming. Seeing obviously the loanee Ryan Sessegnon getting his first goal for the club, so that's obviously a positive in itself. I think if they can unlock Sessegnon as a player, see the player that was coming up at Fulham rather than the one we've seen at Spurs recently, that can be a really exciting thing. Yeah, there's just a few things missing at the moment from Hoffenheim. They're not quite piecing things together, especially in the league. So they just need to try and take the point, move on, say that obviously they didn't get beaten. That's a positive. And then, move on, hopefully get a positive result midweek and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 wins early season, they seem a long time ago. It's now 6 without a win for Hoffenheim, with 4 defeats in those 6 as well. So they would have hoped to get over the line, but it wasn't to be. So let's move on to our next featured game, which was, lo and behold, it was finally Mainz's first win of the season, following up the first point in the last round of fixtures against Schalke. They've now got what is a really good win away at Freiburg, who are, let's be honest, they're starting to sink pretty fastly after a good start, really. Yeah. I think we mentioned early on in the season that Freiburg were really doing well, but the last few games it's been shocking, really, hasn't it? But let's focus mostly on Mainz, first of all. I mean, it's a great result for them. It's finally at the 8th time of asking, they've got that win. And actually, they've also got themselves out of the relegation picture at the moment as well. They're up to 15th now with that win from bottom. So good night for Mainz, Rory.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic win for them. Getting that first win under the belt is so important in a long season. And one thing that you're always going to say, if you're a team that's in and around the bottom of the division, you know you're going to be struggling. But one thing that you're going to need to get yourself out of trouble is someone who can find the back of the net. And they seem to have that in the form of the Frenchman Mateta. We've mentioned him a few times on this show. Who he scored some good goals, and unfortunately hasn't quite always returned points for the club. However, his first half hat-trick today was really clinical. Actually, chances he got, he made sure he was hitting the back of the net, corners, and then, lo and behold, obviously it puts Mainz in complete control of the game, and then they can just see out the rest of the game. Obviously, it was more of a first half blitz rather than a complete 90-minute performance, because Freiburg inevitably came back into the game. And after the home side got that the first and only goal that they scored in the game, I was starting to think this could go south quite quickly. Obviously, from Mainz's point of view, being relatively low on confidence, it could all turn around, and the momentum did swing. Grifo, the Italian international, was instrumental for everything good that Freiburg did. However, inevitably, it wasn't enough. They couldn't get those goals. Obviously, despite scoring a second goal late on, it probably would have just been a consolation. I'm not sure. Potentially, it didn't look to me as if the keeper had two hands on it. So, in my opinion, probably should have stood and it should have finished 3-2. However, referees made a decision that's final. But yeah, from Mainz's point of view, we said it, didn't we, a good few weeks ago. Sometimes you just got to start with an ugly point, and they just started to do that. Started to get a bit of confidence. They started scoring goals more regularly. And lo and behold, the performance has finally come where they've managed to collect 3 big points, and it pushes them out of the dreaded bottom 3. So huge positives to take for Mainz, and they can go forward with great confidence now. The only slight issue is when you're a club at the bottom end of the division, and you've got one particular outstanding player, so that clubs might come sniffing around Mateta around January. Hopefully not, and he can hopefully keep on playing really well for his club. But as always, the fear when someone's doing particularly well. But positives for sure for Mainz to take. It was a really well-rounded performance in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you've got a side like Mainz, you definitely need a striker who's going to score the goals. But I think in general, I actually like the way they attack at times as well. I don't think attack has really been the problem for them all season, to be honest with you. Like they play an attacking style as well, really. Obviously with the 3 behind Mateta as well. Quaison, I mean, he's a Swedish international. Sweden are like a kind of half-decent international team, aren't they? And he plays a lot for Sweden. Obviously, Boetius as well is a player with some kind of caliber as well. Quite a long-serving attacking midfielder. Got good performance today as well. Mm-hmm. I think Mainz, they are going to score goals this season, but I think the issue for me has always been that it's very, very easy to create chances against them, isn't it? It's like we saw it in the second half today as well. When they got that first goal, I think everybody, Mainz fans more than anyone, were thinking, oh God, this is it's going to be a long half an hour kind of thing. Yeah. But I mean, they did hold out relatively comfortably, I guess. But that goal at the end, which probably should have stood, and then it could have been like a very, very nervous minute or 2 minutes, couldn't it? I mean, I can't even imagine what would have happened if they'd have got that second goal and then they'd have added an extra minute on, and I think Mainz players wouldn't have been able to kind of hold it together, to be honest. There could have been a chance they'd have conceded again, the way this season's gone for them. But yeah, I mean, obviously, what about Freiburg? I mean, I think a lot of people kind of had high hopes for them, but they did have the squad a little bit stripped in summer. They lost a goalkeeper to Hertha Berlin. They lost Waldschmidt to Benfica, which was a bit of a shock of a move as well, really. The kind of, I think he got about 12, 14 goals last season. He's also a German international now.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like Niels Peterson. He's also a solid striker at this level. Got the goal today, but are you starting to worry for them a bit, Rory, that they could get dragged into a dogfight?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the league table, they're well and truly in it. Just with the main bottom 3 starting to pick up points here and there now. Like we mentioned, it is now becoming a bottom 5 with Arminia and, of course, Freiburg now well and truly in the mix. So they're just going to have to turn things around sharpish. It's always hard when you're not playing well and you're not getting results. Confidence clearly isn't very high. They've got good players, though. As we mentioned, Peterson with the goal today, following up well to poke home the goal. Grifo is obviously a very talented player, and a lot of their play goes through him. So the only problem is sometimes a bit of an over-reliance on certain players. So hopefully they can get themselves turned around. But at the moment, it's a bit of a sinking ship, and they're going to get dragged into the mix with these 4 other clubs at the bottom of the Bundesliga. But for now, they're okay. They're just about above trouble. But yeah, for sure, it's a worrying time if you're a Freiburg fan. didn't turn up at all in the first half, left it too late inevitably for a bit of a late push for half an hour or so. But yeah, it's not been brilliant by them for a little while now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to our fourth and final featured game, which was, you guessed it, another defeat for Schalke. That kind of number keeps going up now. No win since January. We're another 2 weeks closer now from last time to going that dreaded year without a win. You just can't imagine it, but it's very possible at the moment. I think with the winter break, they'd only have to go another 4 or 5 games without a win to go a whole calendar year without taking 3 points in the Bundesliga. So obviously, again, I think today was 2 very early goals from Wolfsburg, wasn't it? Good old Wout Weghorst getting his goal, his headed goal from the corner. That's a classic Wout Weghorst goal, I think. Like, he gets a lot of those kind of goals, but it's useful in the Bundesliga because we have talked before that set plays and headed goals are pretty common at this level of football. So it's quite a physical league. So yeah, I think obviously headers are important, and he gets them. And then yeah, I mean, obviously, I think early on Wolfsburg, they had like 7 shots on target in the opening half an hour. I mean, it was just a horrible start to the game for Schalke. Yeah, Rory, do you think it's would you think it was more a case of Wolfsburg being really good or Schalke being poor?
I guess it's much like the game that we were just chatting about in terms of Freiburg not really turning up in the first half, and by then the game's effectively done. So yeah, Wolfsburg came out of the traps really well. Weghorst, another goal for him, and a well-worked goal for Schalke. Meant that obviously the away side were up and cruising quite comfortably by that point. And especially the context of the game. Wolfsburg unbeaten so far in the Bundesliga. Schalke, obviously, the complete opposite end of that in terms of how well they're playing. But they did come back into the game and they did have chances. Utz obviously has almost scored. I think it was late on in the first half where he potentially could have scored. But ultimately, Casteels in net managed to keep his clean sheet intact, although obviously they did hit the bar late on as well through Rahman. But yeah, again, like I was mentioning with Freiburg, just too little too late. And when you're down at the bottom of the table, you need to come out of the blocks as hard and as quickly as possible, because ultimately you're playing teams that are playing better than you. So you need to be at it from the start. And if you can't even do that, that's the very basics of football. So yeah, it's all very well turning up and putting on a good show for an hour, 45 minutes once you're 2-0 down. But why don't you do that from the start and give yourself a chance to go in 1-0, 2-0 up? So yeah, that's obviously it's another bad performance ultimately from Schalke. Not too much to take from it in terms of positives. So yeah, I'm struggling to think of something positive to say. I do want to say something positive to keep people, Schalke fans, with some hope. At the end of the day, that the good thing is they're not miles behind anyone. They're still in the mix. It's still quite tightly congested in that bottom 5, like we said. So hopefully they can just find a way of nicking an ugly win to get themselves going. Wolfsburg, unbeaten in the Bundesliga. Obviously, they're only one of 2 teams that are unbeaten, themselves and Bayern Leverkusen. And we asked for more from them X amount of weeks into doing this show, and they're starting to produce it now. Not, playing free-flowing football or anything dramatic like that, but they're efficient. They're getting the job done. They're not being beaten. Obviously, they're hard to beat, and I mean they're well in the mix in terms of Europe. So yeah, things are going well in terms of Wolfsburg for sure.
Yeah, as you say, it's certainly not like beautiful football that Wolfsburg play, but I think it's been the same for a few years now. They've been very much a kind of a direct side. I think last year they drew a lot of games, which cost them an automatic European place where they obviously lost in the playoff. But I think obviously, yeah, I mean, 8 games is starting to become like a pretty decent unbeaten record to start the season, isn't it? I mean, it's like, well, at first we were like, yeah, they drew the first, what was it, 4 out of the first 5, but now they've won 3 out of the last 4, and it's starting to look like a decent run, isn't it? Really, it's like, I mean, 3 wins, 5 draws. Like, if you win your next game, all of a sudden it's really looking like a decent points total by this stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they play Werder Bremen, of course, on Friday night. So, I mean, it's another game that they won't expect to lose. But I guess it's just about pushing on getting those winners as well for Wolfsburg, which we've mentioned. Like, they do draw a lot of games. Sometimes they don't push as hard as you'd like in those last 20 minutes to try and get the win. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, yeah, I think unbeaten runs do build confidence, don't they? And it's like, as you say, it's not great football. Maybe their fans would expect a little bit more because you've got players like Maximilian Arnold in there. And obviously, Wout Weghorst is very much a kind of like a Bas Dost kind of forward, isn't he, really? Like I think Spurs were linked with him in some of those. So, I mean, obviously, he's highly thought of in the footballing world. And he gets goals at this level, doesn't he? So, I think, yeah, there are quality players in there. But I think it's... This team is more about being hard to beat and robust and resilient rather than playing like great football. But we'll have to see where it takes them, really. You know, I mean, I would say if you compare a team like Stuttgart or Wolfsburg, I'd say Stuttgart have played much better football than Wolfsburg. But Wolfsburg have got more points on the board now, haven't they? And I think by 3 or 4 more points. So it's quite a substantial difference. So it just proves that in football there are different ways to win. And it's good to see different styles in the Bundesliga this year as well. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the rest of the games from the weekend. Just quickly, let's go over the other ones. So obviously, Saturday afternoon, Bielefeld losing at home to Leverkusen for a game that I think was probably more memorable for that absolutely horrendous Hradecki own goal. I mean, what was that really? We've talked about Bielefeld struggling to create chances, but I mean, what was that, Rory? That was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in the game itself, Leverkusen are trying to get that second goal, and then something as freakish as that can happen. Obviously, it's just a harmless back pass from, I think it's Sint-Graven. And then obviously the nightmare ultimately comes true as obviously the keeper slices the ball into his own net, and then obviously that could have cost the team dearly, missing out on those 2 points against a team who are really struggling. So yeah, it's just one of those ones that's going to go on the bloopers reel. I'm sure we'll see that played many more times before the end of the season is out. Unfortunately, it can happen to football players, even professionals. So yeah, I think obviously there was a bit of a bobble. So yeah, it's tricky. It's an error, but there are mitigating circumstances, I suppose. But lucky Leverkusen that super sub Dragovic was able to save the day late on for them to claim obviously a vital win ahead of them going back into Europe themselves this week as well. But again, as I've just mentioned, they're one of only 2 teams that are unbeaten in the Bundesliga. They're looking good. Probably not the best game for them in general. Probably missed a few chances. Leon Bailey scoring again is a positive for them. So yeah, good win for Leverkusen. Move on. Bielefeld, yeah, starting to struggle a little bit, but losing 2-1 against a good team isn't a disgrace either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it shows that Leverkusen, they've got that winning mentality back. Peter Bosz, I think earlier in the season that would have finished 1-1, wouldn't it? But I mean, obviously they do find a way nowadays. And I mean, they're winning most games comfortably, but this one they had to grind it out a bit. Yeah. And obviously a bit of a shock as well on Saturday afternoon. And to be honest, it could have been worse for Bayern in the 1-1 draw at home to Werder. I think Werder Bremen, bravo to those guys, really, because I think it was a brilliant performance. And I think I would say if any side deserved to win that game, it was Werder Bremen, to be honest. Obviously, missing a one-on-one going into the last 5-10 minutes, like that is, I mean, it was a good save in the end from Neuer. But I mean, I think overall, I mean, Werder Bremen, they won't be unhappy with that, will they? We said they couldn't get a draw again, but the draw specialists have done it again, haven't they, Rory?
They have, yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely fair play. Werder, really, really good performance. I did watch a good chunk of this game, and yeah, I was just kind of waiting for Bayern to come out of the traps and like come out of this sluggish start, but just never happened really. Like Werder completely deserved their point, if not more, like you said. Josh Sargent had a really good game. Obviously, he's had a chance to probably win the game for them. So yeah. I mean, draw specialists, they can't stop drawing 1-1, it seems. So they'd obviously want to turn these draws into wins. But yeah, made the champions look bang average. Obviously, as much as we've credited Bayern so far since doing the show, we also have to say when they're not, when on the rare occasions when they don't play well, and this was one of these times, they were average. They missed Kimmich, obviously. Goretzka was on the bench, but came on and then assisted the goal for Koeman. So those two are big players for them, I think. It was good to see the young lad, Musala, getting a start. Obviously, the young Englishman that didn't quite happen for him. Yeah, an off day for Bayern, and the title race is well and truly open.
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of stood out of this game, the goal from Coman was exactly the same as the goal that won the Champions League final as well against Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah, it was a Goretzka kind of curled cross in and then that kind of header across the goal from Coman. So yeah, I think that was the most standout thing for Bayern in what was otherwise a poor performance really for them, and they could easily be going home with a home defeat there. Okay, also another pretty topsy-turvy match with Gladbach drawing 1-1 with Augsburg as well. I mean, what a point for Augsburg, really. Obviously, on form Gladbach, they're playing really well at the moment, creating chances, scoring goals. I think for me, one of the things that stood out for me is that you've got to be questioning, is Briel Embolo really a good enough replacement for, so obviously, Plea and Thuram, because I mean, how many chances did he miss to finish the game at 2-0 there? I mean, it was just, he's always been a player that I've been a little bit questionable about, but I think my decision's been made that I just don't rate him after that performance.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, how many chances can you miss in one game, Rory?
Yeah, Gladbach would be kicking themselves. That is 1,000% 2 points dropped. Yeah, should have killed the game. And Bolo, completely guilty of missing bags and bags of chances. And then, yeah, obviously the away side going down to 10 men as well, and they still get themselves out of trouble. Credit to Augsburg, showing that grit, that togetherness after going down. Framberger hasn't really done himself much justice or good in terms of coming on and then gets 2 yellow cards within 12 minutes. Not the impact that you wanting your substitute to make at all. Yeah, great point for Augsburg. Very, very disappointing for Gladbach, but I'm sure they'll have one eye on the Champions League this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that man Caligari again. He's becoming like a real kind of thorn in the side of a lot of sides, isn't he? I mean, it was a really, both goals were actually really scrappy in this game, to be honest. But I think, yeah, I mean, Augsburg are becoming one of those sides that are a little bit tough to beat, aren't they? It's, yeah, a good point for them. Yeah, and obviously another 1-1 draw. Actually, again, we had 3 1-1 draws between Frankfurt and Leipzig. Yeah, I think it was very much a contrast of styles, this game. Frankfurt these days are very much a direct side, aren't they? They like set plays and, yeah, it's all very, very direct with Bas Dost and Andre Silva, 2 pretty physical forwards up top for them, against the sleek passing football of Rasenballsport Leipzig. Yeah, I meid again, I always say that I never really fancy Leipzig to go away to these kind of big teams. I say Frankfurt are a big team. I mean, they're a side that want to qualify for Europe this season. And I just don't fancy them to get wins. I actually tip Frankfurt to win this game. But I mean, I think if Leipzig want to be challenging for the title, which is possible this season, for me, they've got to start winning, finding a way to win, because they did play better than Frankfurt in this game. They were the dominant side as far as I'm concerned. Rory, how can they start turning these kind of away games into wins?
Well, I said early on the season, I think a massive difference was going to be having Dani Olmo playing from the start. of this season, getting the full Bundesliga season under his belt. The creative Spanish midfielder has been really good for them. But yeah, these are the results at the end of the season where you look back at and you frown upon and you think that's cost us a chance at a Bundesliga title. Obviously, Poulsen still contributes goals all the time, which is great for them. But they're lacking that clinical edge, I think, at the moment. Angelino, one of the signings of the summer for sure. Again, getting an assist this time. Again, perhaps they're looking a little bit too far ahead to the Champions League. Obviously, they've got a big game this week against PSG, which is obviously a big, must-win game for them in terms of the group as it stands. So yeah, poor kind of, again, points dropped in what was a fantastic weekend in terms of how results panned out for Dortmund, really.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, if Leipzig are going to kind of close that gap between Bayern and maybe even Dortmund, they've got to start winning these kind of fixtures. It's just, and I think I've been saying it for all the way through. Like they can't go to places like Leverkusen, Gladbach, Frankfurt. These hard away games, they just don't win them. They can get draws quite easily in these games, but they can't. It's massive because if you're going to keep up with Bayern, because they do win these kind of games, that's the problem. They do go to Bayern, they do go to Dortmund and Gladbach and win these games. And this is what it comes down to ultimately. I think obviously they won 4 out of 4 home games and comfortable wins too, but it's these away games that you just question them in a little bit. But all in all, not a terrible result for them, but you'd have been hoping for a bit more. So on to the last game of the weekend. It's another brilliant win for my beloved Union Berlin. I was cheering them on before the end of that game. A late winner there, in what was, again, a really good professional performance. You were just thinking it was going to peter out to be a 1-0, but obviously Union, as it often happens these days, they just have that last laugh, don't they? Obviously, now it's 4 wins, 3 draws from their 8 games, which is a brilliant 15 points from 8 games. Is a brilliant tally for them, up to 5th place after 8 games. It's just turned into a dream season, Rory, isn't it?
Yeah, they're doing fantastically well. Wasn't the prettiest of games or performances from the club, but that just goes to show how far they've progressed in a short amount of time, that they can put in a pretty average performance and come away with a 2-1 away win in the Bundesliga, which is fantastic. Obviously, Max Kruse probably didn't have his best game, but again, he's the game decider. Who obviously he missed his first ever career penalty, but then follows up and make sure that he scores in the end, keeping his composure. So yeah, fantastic for Union. They're doing brilliantly. Really, really good stuff. So they're on for a fantastic season.
Yeah, and as for Cologne, I mean, they're only one of only 2 teams now without a win. Like, I think Cologne seem to be one of those teams, like they're not playing like really, really badly, but they're a bit like, I mean, they're playing better than Schalke for me overall, but they're just not getting the rub of the green, are they? Like they're conceding late goals, and they're just not. I mean, I tipped them to go down at the start of the season, and it's not really looking promising now, is it? With obviously Mainz getting better, and Schalke, you would expect will eventually win, wouldn't you? I mean, do you think Cologne can stay up, Rory? Have they got enough in there to stay up?
From what I've seen so far, no. They've been pretty poor. They just can't seem to get over the line in games. Like you said, they concede some late goals, and they just look shot. So I don't have a huge amount of confidence for them right now. Obviously, that can change in time. They just need to start changing things up, coming out of the blocks and getting some goals in them. But at the moment, it's looking pretty bleak.
Absolutely. So that concludes our roundup for week 8 of the Bundesliga fixtures. So let's swiftly move on to the next part of our show this week, which is obviously looking ahead to next week. We'll have a look at Petre's Pundit's predict. So over to Rory for that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the part of the show where myself and Mark pit ourselves against each other and do some predictions for next match day. We've taken a little bit of time, but we finally caught up with who's been who's been doing what and how we've been doing. So at the moment, after match week 8, the standings are myself, Rory Petre on 3 points, and Mark has won 2. We started scoring on match day 4, so that's why there've been only that many games or scores so far. So you're up to date. It's 3-2 to me at the moment. And so kicking off with next week, so we do have a Friday night game between Wolfsburg and Werder Bremen. And as good a guns as Wolfsburg are going, I'm going to say 2-2. Draw specialist Werder again for me. Mark, what are you saying about this one?
Yeah, I think this game, it looks a good a draw, because I think both of these sides like a draw, although Wolfsburg have been turning games into wins. I've gone for a 1-1 draw there.
Very good. Moving on to the Saturday afternoon, kicking off with a home game for RB Leipzig against Arminia Bielefeld. I think RB will struggle, but ultimately get a tight 2-1 win. Mark, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I've gone for a 4-1 win there. I think Bielefeld are just not. They look short of where they were at the start of the season. I just think Leipzig will be way too strong for them. 4-1.
Very good. Moving on to a home game as well for another team at the top, which is Borussia Dortmund hosting FC Köln, which will be, for me, a 3-1 win for the home side. Just too much going forward for Dortmund, as Cologne obviously been struggling. So yeah, 3-1 win for me. Mark?
Yeah, I've gone for a 5-1 win actually to Dortmund. I just think Dortmund really like this kind of game, against a team that are just going to really struggle, aren't they? There, I can see them putting a good few past them. So 5-1.
Yeah, lots of goals you're predicting, Mark.
Absolutely. Bundesliga and goals,
Yeah, this is true. And then moving on to what could be quite an exciting game is VfB Stuttgart hosting the champions Bayern Munich. I'm saying, as much as I have also a soft spot for Stuttgart, I'm saying 4-2 to the visitors, so a high-scoring win for Bayern.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's a derby, the Sud derby as well. So, I mean, it's a big game, despite the fact the fans won't be there. I think, to be honest, if Bayern hadn't drawn this week, I would have gone for a draw in this game. But I think because of the fact that Bayern did draw this week, I'm going to go for a 3-2, a late win for Bayern in Stuttgart. 3-2.
Very good. And then we've still got a couple of other Saturday afternoon games, which firstly between Union Berlin hosting Frankfurt, and I believe it'll be another 2-2 draw. Mark, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I've gone for a 1-1 draw there, because I think Union 3 wins in a row. It's a big ask to make it 4, really.
Yeah, very good. And the last Saturday kickoff will be between FC Augsburg and Freiburg. I think, Freiburg are really struggling at the moment, and Augsburg will manage to get a 2-1 home win.
Yeah, I've also gone for a 2-1 home win. I think Augsburg have just got too much quality in there for a struggling Freiburg side.
Then moving on to the Saturday evening or late afternoon kickoff, which will be Borussia Mönchengladbach hosting Schalke. Struggling Schalke. I do expect Mönchengladbach to get over the line this weekend, and they'll win 3-1 for me.
Yeah, I think obviously Gladbach do play in Europe in midweek, so they are going to be having issues, but I just can't see Schalke going there and getting anything, so I'm going for 3-0 to Gladbach.
Very good. And then moving on to our 2 Sunday games. Firstly, starting with Bayer Leverkusen hosting Hertha Berlin. Obviously, Hertha, we think, do seem to travel a little bit better, so I'm expecting a tight game, but ultimately 2-1 home win for me. Mark?
I've actually gone for a 2-2 draw. I just think Hertha are a different side away from home, and I think you can't expect Leverkusen to keep winning when they're playing twice a week, so I think they might concede a late leveler in this game for a 2-2 draw.
Very good. And then the last game of the weekend will be Mainz hosting Hoffenheim. Both teams struggling-ish. Obviously, Mainz picked up a fantastic win this weekend, so I think it will be 1 goal apiece. 1-1. Mark?
I've gone for 2-2 again. Yeah, a lot of goals this weekend. But yeah, I think, again, the 2 attacking sides that can't defend, so I don't see why there won't be many goals in this game.
Very good. So that brings a close to Petre and Pundit's predicts. So that is looking ahead to match day 9 next weekend. And then we'll just very quickly move on to our little feature that we do as well, which is Bundesliga Fakten mit Rory. So Bundesliga facts with Rory, myself. So the one that I've got for you guys this weekend is Youssoufa Moukoko became the youngest ever Bundesliga player after coming off the bench on Saturday evening to replace Erling Haaland at 16 years and 1 day old. Obviously, youngest ever player, fantastic achievement for the young man. Well done. Interestingly, this wouldn't have been able to happen until the Bundesliga actually changed the rules so that 16-year-olds could play, because beforehand it was 16 and a half years old, I believe. So yeah, very interesting stuff there. And that brings to a close Bundesliga Fakten mit Rory, and indeed the show this weekend. It's been another fantastic weekend of Bundesliga action. So thank you for tuning in and listening to our show, the Bundesliga Show. To draw your attention, obviously, as per usual, the Bundesliga Show will be going live on YouTube and on all audio platforms on Monday evening, as per usual. And on Tuesday morning, we've got a treat for you, as we have been kind of hinting you guys that the Bundesliga Show European edition will be dropping on Tuesday morning as well. So that will be a review of the German teams, 6 German teams that have been involved in the Champions League and Europa League so far this season. So keep your eyes peeled, get yourselves watching that. Click the bell icon so you get a notification straight away so you don't miss it. That is a fantastic idea. So please do subscribe to the show, because we are really enjoying this and enjoy having you guys watch and listen along. Also, keep your eyes peeled for another mini series we are doing, which is Bundesliga Show Derby Day Dive-Ins, where myself and Mark are taking a look at some of the rivalries and derbies of the Bundesliga, which we've been having a good amount of fun with. So again, keep your eyes peeled for them. And so over to Mark to finish off for this week.
Okay, yeah, so obviously, as Rory's already kindly alluded to, we have a lot of material to look at. So if you want to kind of keep in touch with us more often, then follow us on Twitter. You can see at @OverTheBarFB. And of course, our kind of main part of our website is indeed the site. So yeah, www.otbfootball.net. You can find out information about anything football related. Obviously, check out the League One show as well. Yeah, so yeah, but it's been great again. Yeah, another great weekend of Bundesliga action. Thanks, Rory, as well. And we will see you again next week for our
Pleasure.
Week 9 roundup. All the best.
Cheers all. Bye.